This is Jaya Gomathi Mirra for Cinema Express, and we have with us Grace Moore. It's great to have you here, Grace. Welcome. And we are going to be talking today about the new Netflix climate change documentary, Kiss the Ground, one of the most triumphant documentaries in presenting an effective crisis to climate change. The utopian spirit of the documentary is overwhelming and optimistic in the time when there is so much pessimism and so much helplessness around the conversations regarding climate change. And I was really overwhelmed with the documentary.
I'll make you a deal. I won't give up, and neither should you.
So I wanted to start with this question that when a topic like climate change is discussed, there is this sense of helplessness and guilt that fills in us. It is perceived as something larger than us, but it is also something that directs us too directly, that impacts us too directly. And the major challenge is in humanizing the problem. And Kiss the Ground absolutely succeeds in doing this. So, how did you and your team work in tackling that challenge?
Thank you for that question, Mira, and thank you for your words of Kiss the Ground and your enthusiasm. So the way that we really humanized this challenge is we really tried to go against the grain from what most climate change documentaries and most climate change media has been saying, which is basically telling people how much in trouble we are, how doomed we are, how much we really need to act now or else we're going to face an apocalypse, and really just scaring people to try to get them to change their ways. But we found out that fear isn't a very good tactic for change, at least not long-term sustained change. But what is a good tactic is really is to inspire people to change. And that's what Kiss the Ground really does. If you change your ways through just these few simple steps as a consumer by being aware of what you're putting on your plate, and as a farmer, what you're putting in the soil, then you can, as a consumer, as someone who may not hold any political power, every single person in the world can make a difference.
And do you sense that there is a lack of positivity in major documentaries that are featuring climate change? And how much is this positivity and optimism, as you have said, integral to this conversation on climate change when you're putting it out there for people to learn about, know about, and consume?
I don't know of many positive documentaries at all when it comes to climate change, or much positive media at all. And that's why I think Kiss the Ground is such an important film at this point, because fear doesn't incite change. It doesn't incite passion. It might get a few people to make a few decisions, but it's not a good tactic. Yeah, this is why we've come in to try to kind of change the dominant narrative around climate change.
How personal is this issue actually to you, and how is your active involvement in soil regeneration? And when did you actually discover documentaries and films as an effective means to communicate these environmental issues you feel strongly about?
When I was in college, I think I was in my second year, and I got an opportunity to work on another environmental film about how to make cities more sustainable. And so that's when I started watching a lot of environmental documentaries and really saw the extent of the climate crisis and how bad it was. And of course, I got scared. This is terrible. What are we doing to the planet? This is horrible. And then I came across one of Josh and Rebecca's others documentaries called Pump. And it was a totally inspiring film. And it was about how we can get off of how America can get off its dependency on gasoline. And it was just, the energy of the film was so inspiring that I immediately knew that I wanted to make environmental documentaries for the rest of my life. And I've always had a passion for farming and for the environment. My brother is a regenerative farmer, an organic farmer, so I always knew the importance of healthy food and knowing where your food came from. But so really, when I found Kiss the Ground, it was the nexus of so many of my passions combined.
As an associate producer of the film, could you walk us through your association and the development of the film? outline your role in it?
I'm basically right up there with Josh or Rebecca. I report with them directly. I help them with the visual storytelling, finding the right B-roll to be able to tell a story like this in a very compelling and beautiful way that really catches the eye. I help them with the fundraising process. I've helped hosted a number of fundraisers for them as we continue to, and I also work with the editing team to come up with a very beautiful way of telling this story.
As you have told that fear is not a major incitement to change, that and kiss the ground, the title itself, there is a sense of reverence, there is a sense of romance in the act of kissing the ground, and that is the utopian spirit that guides the entire documentary. So did you start with this idea, or when you were encountering these stories and then you're documenting these stories, that this idea came up, and how did it influence you putting it together, the gathering of the stories and filtering certain things out?
There was an energy coming into this film that we knew that we wanted to align with, and we knew that energy was going to be inspiring and beautiful and was really going to make a difference. And once we said this is how we want the film to look, all of these stories came together, and we found all of these farmers who taken their farms off of chemical agriculture, off of government subsidies, and were really regenerating their land over just a few years and restoring the biodiversity of their land. Like I said, getting off of government subsidies and really regenerating their land and their soils, and they were so much happier as a result. Each one of these stories that we encountered kind of reiterated this inspirational story that we had begun with.
And do you have in Kiss the Ground the journeys of underdogs like the regenerative rancher Gabe Brown, and there are also famous actors who have strived to actively mitigate the climate change crisis that's looming. And so, what did you think? They obviously brought a wider reach to this documentary. And in line with that, do you think that solution oriented perspectives on climate change is thriving in the popular discourse? And do you think it is happening in the level it needs to be?
It's getting there. It really is getting there, because what we found is people want solutions. We know what the problems are. There's debate about this, but we know what the issues are, but people want to know how they can be a part of the solution. And yes, there is a large need for more of this type of media in documentary world and in the film world and in environmental media in general. And relatable stories, like you said, from the underdogs, from the people on the ground that are really taking it into their own hands to create the better world that they want to live in.
And Kiss the Ground isn't merely content to raise awareness. Like, you have also adopted an interactive model where you have outdoor screenings in farm communities. So, like, how reassuring the response to that has been. And I also wanted to ask that, do you anticipate a new model, interactive model, coming in with these issue-based documentaries? Is this going to be a new movement in documentaries?
Absolutely is a new movement in documentaries. So Kiss the Ground, it's a film, but it's also a movement. And that's really the most important part of it, is that we want as many people in the world as possible to see this movie, because this is how it's going to make change. And so we've made it widely accessible by creating many different versions of the film. We've made a farmer cut, so for farmers who are wanting to transition their operations to regenerative agriculture, we've made a cut for them. We've made an educational cut for students wanting to learn about regenerative agriculture. And we've translated into 20 languages. We'll be doing even more. And as we're putting this message out, we are advocating that people who are interested in this can really take these soil science courses with the nonprofit Kiss the Ground that we're teamed up with. And if you go to the website, kisstheground.com, you can find your own
Yeah.
path. So anyone can really find their own path to regeneration and to live a regenerative life.
Yeah, and also as a part of the movement that you have said, your focus, the documentary focuses predominantly on America, and it is also focuses on China, France. And do you see as a part of the movement that you will expand and start to research on agricultural practices in other countries, especially in India, which is predominantly an agricultural society?
Our hope is that we will find people all around the world who can help carry this torch and really bring it to their own cultures and help tell the story of the ground in their own native tongue, in their own through the and tell it through their own cultures and traditions, because that's how the story is really going to become alive. We're only telling one very small part of the story, but it's really up to the rest of the world to kind of take this
Oh,
story and promote it and do what they will with it, change it, adopt it. It's a living culture. It's a living story. And absolutely, we would love an Indianized version of this documentary that can focus on the Indian ecology, the Indian traditional farming practices.
we'll be anticipating that soon then. And your distinct role in the documentary is also serving as its millennial spokesperson. So, what exactly is the role of a millennial spokesperson? And I think it's a new term, especially for a documentary. And how important is the role of a millennial spokesperson in a documentary that addresses a issue of gravity like this? Why is this role very important?
As the youngest person working on this film, I'm 22. Um, I think it's important to just have someone who is relatable to the younger generation, because I mean, at least for a farming film like this about agriculture in America, I can't speak for India, but the average age of the American farmer is 55 years old. And so a lot of these agricultural stories don't really land on the biggest population and on the population that is going to make the most change, which is, I believe, the youngest population, my generation. We're the ones who are really inheriting the earth as it is right now, and who are going to steer it in whichever direction that we decide to. So I think it's important to have a young spokesperson for these types of documentaries who can really make it relatable and exciting for the younger generations, and to get them on board and say, like, I'm on board the regenerative movement. Can you come on board with me?
Could you tell us about the projects you're currently working on? And also, an important question that looms right now is how documentary film is going to change in the post COVID-19 world.
Good question. Our next big project that we have coming out is actually a TV series, the Kiss the Ground TV series, where we are going to be focusing on really diving into the storylines of each of the characters that we have in our film, where each of those characters will have their own episode. I think in the post-COVID world, what we're going to be seeing a lot more of is people hiring local production companies. So if we want to film in India, for example, we'll hire a production company in India who will then film the operation, the farm, whatever we need, and send all the footage back to the post-production house where we can turn it into a story and create content that way. But I think travel right now, at least for the coming years, won't be a part of documentary filmmaking. And I think we'll really be interacting with lots of global production teams around the world.
It was great talking to you, Grace Moore, and I hope this conversation was good for you as well. We had a lot of insights, and Kiss the Ground is really exciting, and I hope this movement goes forward and you expand to different countries and also see great success in the interactive model. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mia. I really appreciate your time.